event, Mondays with McCray. So welcome, 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 and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us for an hour to get to know this amazing candidate, an amazing woman. So want to go ahead and get started because we want to stay on time. We wanted really to give Hoosiers an opportunity to get to know Dr. McCray. Like, who is she? Like, who is this woman that is her desire is to build a brighter future, right? Build a brighter future for all, not just some, but all. She also is definitely breaking barriers, being the first African American and first woman to be on the ballot for U.S. Senate in Indiana. So we're really excited about those barriers that she's breaking. But really want you guys to get to know her because I'm just so excited about the possibility of her being our next U.S. Senator. As a mental health professional working in behavioral health for over 30 years, what really drew me to Dr. McCray and resonated with me was when she talked about looking at things from a mental health perspective or a mental health lens, really looking at policy, going to Washington and looking at policy through a mental health lens. And so that's really what excited me about her and the difference that she can make. So Dr. McCray, I'm gonna give them an opportunity to get to know you. So let's start off by telling everybody what really got you interested in running for U.S. Senate. Why are you running for
Oh
Senate?
my goodness. You named it. I'm a clinical psychologist. So mental health, that started the whole process of looking at different mental health situations. And I worked for prisons and I worked with the military. And I also worked as a consultant for the Stop the Violence movement in Indianapolis. And just looking at all the things we could do differently from a federal level that would interrupt or not allow so many things to go into crisis mode. So for example, whether it's mental health or how do I say it, whether it's a mental illness that hasn't been treated, whether it's poverty, whether it's just trauma in their lives, whatever the situation is, drugs or whatever, if we dealt with those things, education, if we just dealt with those things in a meaningful way and invest in those things, we would have fewer people falling through the cracks and into our justice system. So that's what started the conversation. And then as I went on, it became sort of a nagging, you can do this, you should do this, until it turned into, you have no right now really not to do it because you have all those things in place to really step up and help out in a different way, in a broader way. So I welcome the opportunity to do that. And so I stepped in the deep end of the pool, jumped in the deep end of the pool, and now I'm running for United States Senate, which is quite an honor. Yes.
Sorry, you won in the primary. It's really exciting that you won in 90 of the 92 counties. That is really, really exciting for Indiana. That says a lot about what's going on and what people in Indiana want to see. But one thing you said, our nation's wealth is only as good as its citizens' mental health.
Right.
That hit me
Yes.
hard. That
Yes.
was such a strong point. So
Yes. Yes.
talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yes, the wealth of a nation is only as good as the mental health of a nation. I've said it in different ways, but what I mean is this: if you have money allocated to the very few, and you have very little money at the bottom end of things, it causes a myriad of stress, even at those top levels as well. And when you have a wealthy nation, but you have a lot of people in mental health crisis, we're not getting very far. We don't have the energy, the stamina. We don't have what we need as a nation to move forward. We get entangled in a lot of things that we don't need to be entangled in on a personal level and then as a national level as well when we're not mentally healthy. So we as a nation, if we could be all on one accord, for example, we would be a different nation. But I think it's because of the stress levels and the blaming someone else and the fact that we're not able to make our ends meet. The conversation changes, so we're not united as one as a nation, so we can move forward and just be a healthy nation and come up with some really good solutions on things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're fighting each other unnecessarily. Our mental health as a nation is not that great right now. I don't think it's lacking.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's so many communities that, there's this outpouring of communities that are saying we need things to address our mental health
Yes,
from the youth. I mean, we're seeing a lot of mental health situations in our youth as
yes,
well as in our adults. And so having a candidate like you that can, really kind of address some of, like you said, I think I've heard you say, instead of one crisis, mental health crisis at a time, let's affect it on a broader perspective.
yes, yes. We can't keep doing this one mental health crisis at a time. We have to find broader strokes. We have to find bigger solutions. And education is a piece of that. Making sure that we have healthcare for everyone is a big piece of that. I talk also about wages that are not really helping people's ends to meet. So people are working multiple jobs
Mhm.
and still not able to make those things happen for themselves, not able to get that. I call it breathable wages, Janine. And what I mean by that is that you get paid
Mhm.
every week, and you've got a little money left over. You don't need a
Mhm.
set of tires this time. Your brakes are good. Everything is good. Little money in the bank. Um, you've been able to take your kids to Kings Island or whatever, and you still are not stressed out about that.
Mhm.
And having that time or that breath in between paychecks to just breathe and
Mhm.
not be so worried about where the next dollar is coming from. That's what we should all, that should be attainable for everyone, especially everyone who's working full time. One full time job, not five full time jobs and part time jobs, and trying to piece it together.
Mhm.
When we do that, we have so many kids that are being raised without the parents in the home. Even the ones that are parents that are there are so tired or so busy or so stressed that they can't be there in their entirety to make sure the kids are taken care of. All the things that kids need these days, the monitoring what they're doing on the internet and all those things, that takes time and energy to make sure your kids are okay. And we're sucking up that energy with low wages and people trying to make their ends meet on very low wages. I don't know if you know it or not, but our minimum wage is still nationally at
Mhm.
$7.25 an hour.
Mhm.
I don't know if who can live on that.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's not even possible. You can't even get a room in a house. You can't even rent a room for $7.25 an hour.
Mhm.
We haven't moved from that. Most states have mandated their own mental health. I'm not mental health, their own minimum wage.
Mhm.
However, Indiana is still at $7.25 an hour,
Mhm.
and that's a shame. So we have to move from that. Most places are paying more than that, but they don't have to. And
Mhm.
we have to fix it where they have to pay more so
Mhm.
that people can not be stressed out and apologetic about not being able to make their ends meet. It's not their fault if they can't make their ends meet on $7.25 an hour. And I would venture to say that even twice that is not going to be enough. In
Mhm.
today's market, we're looking at about $50,000 before you can make all your ends meet. And that's not living large at all. That's just, shopping at, you know,
Mhm.
Aldi's and just living normal. So we've got a long way to go when it comes to that. And I want to fix that at the federal level.
Right. So in what you just said, I heard a couple of different things. I heard the federal minimum wage. I
Yes.
heard housing, because people are not able to make ends meet and have affordable housing if they're making 7.25 an hour, which is so true. And so a part of it, like you said, is education. And I think as I've talked to friends and family about you running for US Senate, I think people get a little confused about, how you can impact some of the things that you're talking about. Because when they, hear US Senate, I'm not sure people really understand what a United States Senator does. And so I know I mentioned to a couple of people that maybe live in Brownsburg or Noblesville. I've got a few friends up in Michigan City. And so when I talk about you, they're like, well, I don't live in Indianapolis. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is a statewide race. And so
Yes, it's
thinking it's a
confusing for a lot of,
statewide.
yes.
Yes. So why don't you just take a few minutes, because in talking about affordable housing and talking about, federal minimum wage, how will you, Dr. McCray, as a US Senator, be able to impact that?
Okay, so when you're a United States Senator for a state, and everybody, we've got two United States Senators per state. And so we have two at all times, two senators. You're keeping the state things that the state needs in mind, right? But you're also handling the needs of the nation. So when you're voting and when you're putting together legislation, you're keeping in mind the whole of the United States. And some of the things you're doing also is globally as well, right? So you have the international things as well. So you're voting or are producing policies that affect the whole nation, but you're also keeping Indiana in mind, so that if we know that we have environmental crisis in Indiana, of course, you're there in Washington, D.C. saying, hey, Indiana needs some of that money that we're allocating. We need to make sure that we are putting laws together such that Indiana could benefit from that, and other states as well. But of course, you're going to be a little bit biased towards your state and making sure that your state gets what it needs, and making sure that it's heard on a federal level, because money comes down from the federal level, and then it's divvied out among the different with the governor, and also throughout the state, based on what the different areas need, and what their mayors and legislators decide upon. So a lot of people get the state senators and the U.S. Senate confused. So it's not unusual. It's part of my day to explain, no, there's a difference between a United States senator and a state senator. So basically, I work for the whole state of Indiana, and the whole of the United States as well. So that part is interesting, because we're voting together. Now, what we're doing as a United States Senate, what I want to join that team. We are actually working mostly in Washington, D.C., and going back and forth, making sure that our states are represented, that our needs of our states are represented, but we're also working out of Washington, D.C. to help policy in Washington, D.C. So, for example, if those people that are listening, if they're for Kamala Harris, for example, once Kamala Harris gets in office, she's going to need a strong Senate. She's going to need a strong House to make sure that her policies actually get to her desk. What she needs gets put in policy forms, gets to her desk so she can sign off on it. And that's a process. And if she doesn't have those people in place as a president, she will not be very effective. If she doesn't have a team that really pushes her agenda or that supports her agenda. And of course, we all think differently as well. So we have our own agendas or our own policies that we want to push based on what our state needs, based on what's important for our constituents, because that's what we represent, are the voices of Indiana, but we're doing it on a federal level. Does that make sense? Yeah, hopefully. Maybe someone might have any questions and to clarify that, and I will be glad to answer that.
So I'm so sorry. We've heard so many people, along, helping you out in the campaign, really not understanding that, and understanding that on the ballot, if, they're voting Democratic, that they will see, Kamala Harris's name for president, and that right under her name will be yours for the U.S. Senate. And so really
Yes.
people understand how important this race is, and understanding that, you know, if you are voting Democrat, understanding that this is huge, because I don't believe that we've had a Democratic senator in the state in a while.
In a
And
while,
yes,
in a while,
in a
and
while.
never. I think our last was Joe Donnelly, um, and it's been a while. It's
Mhm.
been a while since we've had a Democrat as the senator. But
Yeah.
also the fact that we've never had a female in the
Mhm.
history of Indiana
Yes. Yes.
um, as a U.S. senator. That
Mhm.
in itself is phenomenal. It's not just at the federal level where we have
Mhm.
Kamala Harris up.
Mhm.
Before that, we had Dr. Valerie McCray up for Indiana,
Yeah.
and that has been in itself just
Mhm.
an astounding accomplishment of our team, because we had an amazing team of volunteers and just great people
Mhm.
that have really rallied together to make sure we got on the ballot for U.S. Senate. It was a huge feat, and it's never happened before. And I think it's such a big elephant that people just don't know how to bite it off, or know how. They don't really know how important this race is, really, or how big of a deal this is, because it's very confusing. We don't have civics taught in a lot of the schools these days,
Mhm.
or so we used to call it social studies.
Mhm.
We're not being taught that, so people don't realize how big of a deal that this Senate race is, and this presidential race. They're more attuned to the presidential race, and that's it.
Mhm.
Not realizing that the president needs a strong Senate, a strong House, a strong Senate to make her policies heard, and to be accomplished, to accomplish those things she needs to accomplish. You know, we in the Senate will be voting on whether or not we go to war, for example, what infrastructure bills, what
Mhm.
happens with our medical care. There's so many things on the senator level that, and on a Senate level, uh, that we have to vote on and make sure those things happen for all of Americans. So it's just really, really, really exciting and really important. So we
It,
got a lot of work to do.
yes, it is very exciting. And to think that we're, less than 2 months away from this election is just, it's exciting. And, it's exciting because not only, we talk about, Kamala and talk about you, but I mean, there's other, I think, women that are also running for other offices. And so just to have that, um, I want to say girl power, because
Oh my
that it is
goodness.
just amazing. That we're,
Indiana has such an amazing, almost all female lineup
mhm, mhm,
at the top of the ticket. And even at the other layers, there's a lot of women involved in running. So we've got a lot of Congress people up for that are running. There's Kylie up in, oh, she's up in Allen County. We've got Lori. Um, oh my gosh, I should have wrote everybody's name down because I see them every day. We see each other out on out on the trail.
that's
Lori
okay.
Camp, she's
Mhm,
out there. There's Cindy Worth,
mhm,
she's out there.
mhm,
There are so many great people that are out there running, great women. There's Erica Watkins up Portage County, in Porter County. There are so many great people out there running, females out there running. And at
mhm,
the top of the ticket, the very top of the ticket, you've got Kamala Harris,
mhm,
Dr. Valerie McCray, which is myself. Then you've got Jennifer McCormick running for governor,
mhm.
and Destiny Wells running for attorney general.
Yes.
That's a powerhouse all by itself. And then we have all of these congressional candidates that are female as well. We have a few good males running too. They're great too.
Yes.
I'm just proud of the women right now because
Yes.
they really are stepping up.
And I wanted to call out the women. I'm sorry, but yes,
I
because
know.
it is really an exciting time, and to have someone like yourself that hasn't, really been a career politician, to see you, rise to this level, it's just amazing, and it really speaks to, people want something different. They want change. They want someone that's really going to speak to the issues and really, do the work. And I've heard you oftentimes talk about how much you're just ready to do the work.
Yes, it's like this is a long job interview. This is a year and a half job interview. Where you're being interviewed by a million people over the course of a year and a half, between collecting signatures, all the speeches, all the various places, parades, or whatever. It's a very long interview for a job that I just can't wait to get to. I want to just do the work. I want to get to doing the work. That nerd side of me that just wants to look at the stats, look at the statistics, look at what's coming up, what environmental new thing is coming up that we can use that will be good for our environment, just energy resources, all of those things. I want to get to the job of helping to make those decisions for Indiana.
And I think we're just excited and ready to have you go so that you can do that. But we did have a question, so I want to make sure that we get some of the questions in, that some of those that have tuned in or joined us online. So the interest workforce for health professionals, particularly medical school students, was less diverse in July 2024 in Indiana than in the last 20 to 25 years. What can you do as U.S. Senator to impact the affirmative action decisions of the Supreme Court? That's one of the questions.
I think for one thing, we need to start a different conversation about affirmative action. We've had 300 years or better of white male affirmative action. Only recently, and that's the issue, it's been affirmative action, but only for one group. Females of all colors, they're just starting to be able to penetrate some of that, to get some of that. I mean, women have only in the last 70 years have been able to get the education, get caught up with economic issues, being able to buy their own homes and that sort of thing. So there's 300 years or better of affirmative action, but yet still when someone else tries to make sure that other groups are represented, it becomes a problem. And it becomes this slur on DEI and affirmative action when all we're trying to do is get some of the affirmative action that has been allotted to just one group. So we need to change that conversation and stop being so apologetic about it. It's like, let someone else in beside yourself. And that's been the whole thing. It's not asking for any favors. It's asking that, hey, some of the favors that are being given to everyone, the other group, you need to let other people in as well. So changing that language as if we're to keep it from being, about someone else trying to get something. It's not that. It's about making making things fair, a little bit more fair. We'll never get to equity. But anytime we stop trying, then we have a problem as a nation. We have to try as a nation to make sure people are represented. On a federal level, it's just a matter of just really calling the hypocrisy for what it is. And that's the goal. Hey, no, this is not something you're giving away. This is something you're just allowing someone else to get a piece of the pie that you have sectioned off for yourself and just for yourself. So just change the language for one. For two, I'm not backing away from DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That should be what America stands for. We can't make it a dirty word, and we can't let them make it a dirty word. That's the beauty of the United States, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. That should be the goal. And anywhere we can push it and get back to it, the better. Those states, those companies, those states that have great diversity, equity, and inclusion, those are the companies that are doing well. It benefits companies to have diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the evidence is all for making things equitable. It's crazy if you don't. It's just economic suicide if you don't. So we got to make it happen. It's better for the United States.
Yes. And you talked about hypocrisy, and you strike me as a woman that when you get to Washington, you will call out the hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You don't have any problem with that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah, it's funny that the same people that strike down um, student loan debt, getting rid of student loan debt, are the same people or want to get rid of Social Security or want to have all these sanctions against people or make it so difficult for people to get loans or be forgiven for loans, are the same people that got enormous loans during the COVID crisis, so PPP loans that they don't have to pay back. I mean, thousands and millions of dollars. But yet and still, those same people vote against anything that gives anyone else any type of relief. That's the type of hypocrisy that I'm talking about. And it's so widespread here among our legislators. We have to really call them out for the hypocrisy. How dare they?
Yes.
You
yes.
know,
And I can't wait for you to be able to do that.
I
and
can't
once
wait.
you win the Senate seat. So there was another question. How do your values differ from Braun? Will you debate him? And that's someone from Clarksville. I do just want to state that Dr. McCray's opponent is not Mike Braun. So I just want to make sure that we clear that up. Mike Braun is running for the governor's seat, and that is Jennifer McCormick, not Dr. Valerie McCray. So I hope that clears that question up.
Right. It's Mike Braun is our current senator.
Yes.
And he's chosen not to run for Senate again. He's going to run for governor instead. I think he wants to be closer to home, I guess. My opponent is Jim Banks. Now, there's quite a bit of overlap between Jim Banks and Mike Braun. But Jim Banks especially, I'm total opposite than my opponent. My opponent is more, he would be in that MAGA category of those people that follow the Trump agenda. I understand he's written or he's at least started part of the 2025. He has been an election denier. All of those things that are abhorrent. He stands for that. And so we're just the opposite here. There are no correlations between the two. I don't see where we match at all. I've never had it's never been just so clear. I'm for environmental health. He's against any type of wetland security or anything like that. Anything that has to do, he denies the environment, the climate changes and things like that. Just all those things that keep this country from moving forward. That seems to be what he's championing, that going back, make America great again. Back to what? What are they going back to? So we're just the opposite in that way. America's already great. We just need to move forward and make it even greater, I guess,
So another question is about polling for this race, for the Indiana Senate race. So I know that some polls have been done. There's an Emerson poll that was done in October of last year, showing at 22%.
Yes, we were at 22 versus 31% or something like that. That was before our primary, before no one knew who we were. And we were doing quite well. There was only 11 percentage points different. It would be interesting to have a poll now. But we're really looking at Jennifer McCormick. She's gotten some polls, and some other people have gotten some polls. Basically, most people that know our value system and know what we're after, the women's rights, making sure we're, affordable housing, those things, people that know us like us. And we're finding that it's just a matter of just getting our names out there, letting people know that they have a choice. Because if it's on name recognition, Braun, for example, might have a little bit of a headway on Jennifer, but she's really, really closing that gap really rapidly. My opponent, Jim Banks, I don't think people know him that well either. So I think we're neck and neck, and I'll be able to close that gap as well. He is a congressperson. So in his area, he's probably known, but I'm not sure if he's known in a positive way. Matter of fact, I don't think he's known in a positive way up in his area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of just closing the gap and just getting that name out, getting the name out. Dr. Valerie McCray is running for United States Senate. People are very excited.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as we spread the word, it's going to be a win in November.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing in talking about your opponent, I know that the Indiana Debate Commission has offered um, for you all to do a debate. However, the independent opponent, Andy Horning, has agreed, you have agreed, but we haven't heard from Mr. Banks. Is that correct? Or
I think that's definitely correct. I think that's coming from a pretty arrogant standpoint. I think the Republican Party has won in previous years without having to do much. I think they haven't got caught up with the fact that we have an amazing presidential candidate and they're going to have to step up and do something. I think their philosophy is just be quiet and just let it roll through. That's not going to work this time. So if he doesn't debate, that's going to be to his detriment. But I'm ready for him. We're ready for a debate, and we welcome a debate.
Okay. So again, I don't know if this is being recorded, if we'll share it. So you hear it, you heard it here. Dr. McCray is not backing down to a debate. She's ready. Another question that came in is gun violence. We talked a little bit about mental health, and let's talk a little bit about gun violence and kind of the correlation or things that kind of people talk about mental health and gun violence and gun control. What controls can be put in place to prevent those that may have some mental health challenges or issues that may be unstable? What can we, or what have you thought about doing or, proposing if you win the Senate race to put in place to prevent those that may have some past history or or current challenges not to be able to purchase a gun?
Right. There are some red flag laws that we haven't just implemented very well. But also, when you put a mental health lens on this, and this is one of the things I talk about going to Washington, is putting a mental health lens, putting a developmental lens on what's happening. Just take, for example, the four people that were killed recently by a teenager, 14-year-old. What I've always advocated is that we need to keep guns away from teenagers, especially male teenagers, because there's already a blurring of reality versus fictional. There's already that blurring. Anyway, there's already that sort of pull towards bad ideas that happen sometimes with teenagers, especially males. Sometimes that's why insurance and car insurance is higher for males. They found that they just get in trouble. They break more legs. They do things that are more dangerous. Anyway, as a group. And then you add mental illness to the equation. The possibility of mental illness is between the ages of 15 and 25 years old. If you're going to see a mental illness, it's going to crop in for males. It's going to come in and be visible around those ages. So we need to have legislation that reflects that. Right now, people are saying, oh, age 18 or age 21, or trying to put a number on that. Why don't we pay attention to the developmental age of that person?
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that we're going to outlaw guns and for that. We haven't gotten that far. But to have an extra eye to say that this young man or this young woman is okay to own a weapon. I disagree with young people owning weapons, period, anyway. But to have these weapons even in the home, we have to consider who else is in the home. And that needs to be part of our legislation.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
That developmental age, that strong point. And again, that's why we need you in Washington, because I don't know people that are really making that legislation understand that developmental age and understanding what's going on with the brain, the decision making, the problem solving, the coping skills, all of that.
Is not fully in It's not fully developed at those ages. So a lot of people are crying out right now. This kid is going to be, they want this kid to be prosecuted as an adult.
Mhm.
As much as I want some justice for the deceased, the people who have lost their lives, the families,
Mhm.
that's not appropriate because you're not dealing with an adult.
Mhm.
And the problem is that we allowed a child to have a weapon, a
Mhm.
war weapon.
Mhm. Mhm.
The problem is with that parent
Mhm.
and their lack of education or their lack of concern or their the difference in their values.
Mhm.
We have to deal with that.
Mhm.
How parents are raising their children, their value system around the whole gun conversation.
Mhm.
To
Right.
buy your kid an AR-15 or whatever the weapon was, that's
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
that in itself is criminal.
Yes. Yes. And we could
Yes,
stay, I know we could stay here for a while,
for
but
a while,
for a
yes.
while, this is something I know this
But
is.
I will say this is that most of the school shootings have been done by young people.
Mhm.
And so just to deal with that age group would greatly diminish this fear that we have that our kids are going to go to school and not come back.
Mhm.
Um, we could cut those numbers by a tremendous amount if we would do something about the age that our guns are in the homes of possible, you know, just do something about the age
Mhm.
that guns are allowed into homes.
Mhm. So that would be definitely something you would be proposing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, yes,
Can't
yes.
wait.
So, another question. So there's Senate committees, several Senate committees, right?
Mhm.
So, uh, do you want to be on one, or which ones do you want to be on, and why?
You know, it's that's something I will be looking into a lot. You know, foreign relations, believe it or not, is very, very important to me. And as a woman of color, I really want to affect how women and girls are treated worldwide, and it starts with the United States as well. The wars and things like that that we're getting into, I want to have a say in that. I want to have some sort of influence on that. Um, Housing and urban affairs, of course. I want to make sure that housing is affordable. We're getting away from having homes that we're allowing hedge funds and these sort of things to buy up thousands and thousands of homes. We have to do something about that because it's making housing unaffordable. There's other committees that I would love to be on. Environment is important to me. But the medical part of everything, the health and education and labor, that committee is very important as well. I want to make sure there's medical care for everyone. So whatever committee that is, I'm going to be edging myself into that. It kind of spans a few committees, but I want to make sure that we have moved more rapidly towards a medical care for all system.
Mhm. Okay. That's, yeah, I like that.
Yes.
I mean, you're thinking ahead. I mean, like, I already imagine yourself there, right?
Yes,
In doing the work,
always.
like, so already knowing, where you want to serve. Um, Another question, you were just talking about healthcare. So, this uh, attendee is a healthcare provider. Um, and as you're a healthcare provider as well, do you know of the practice of conversion therapy? And if so, would you be in favor of a ban or restrictions of the practice?
For
Are
one
you?
thing, conversion therapy is not an accepted practice under the American Psychological Association. As a matter of fact, we actually, that organization, our organization speaks against that. For one, it doesn't work. And for two, it's very inhumane and punitive. It does not change someone's idea of who they are as a sexual being. It doesn't have any, if anything, it will push someone into crisis, a mental health crisis, suicides, and those sort of things. So we want to keep that away. I actually helped to push a bill that was proposed in Delaware County, in Muncie specifically, and they wanted to make sure that conversion therapy was not allowed in their city. And we were able to take that to the city council, and it's in law there that conversion therapy can't be practiced there. Hopefully we can make that statewide. That should not have been an issue for that city, but we need to make that a national thing, that we can't allow these therapies that are not sanctioned by the American Psychological Association to be practiced on folks, especially our vulnerable population, the LGBTQ population, because they're learning themselves, and to be punitive about what they're learning and who they are is just not a good practice.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I hope that helped the person that asked that question. What can be done to reform the U.S. Supreme Court, and what would you personally support?
Well, for one thing, we need to have ethics to be the foundation of the Supreme Court, and how that is not. I think that was something we assumed, right? We assumed that our Supreme Court would have to adhere to the highest level of ethics as possible. But apparently we're seeing in recent times that our Supreme Court justices are very, one, partisan, and two, very susceptible to negative or influence, outside influence. So we're going to have something in place for that. We have to have something in place to remove them as Supreme Court justices. We have to have term limits, possibly. But adhering to developing codes of ethics, our judges have those. And so it's amazing that the Supreme Court justices are not adhering to those rules. And that's appalling. So that would be the main thing. Let's establish the code of ethics. It's already there with our other lower courts. It's a matter of making sure that it's implemented at the highest court.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if we have many more questions, but I do have a couple of people they're asking to tell about yourself. Tell a little bit about your background. They want to get to know you. So your background, about your family. So where were you raised? Where'd you go to school? So that's some of the stuff. So let's
I am so regular. People wonder.
Well, some of us that know you know that, but that's the thing too, that you're just so down to earth. But tell those that are on just a little bit about you.
My parents were teenage parents. I'm not sure. My mom and I, how some questions you just don't ask. And one of the questions I never asked my mom, I know my brother was on his way right around when she was about to graduate high school. I never had the nerve to ask her if she ever graduated. I don't think so. But they managed to do okay. As young parents, they wound up. My dad worked for a Jewish store, a grocery store when we were growing up as kids. I remember that as a youngster. And then he finally got a job with General Motors. So he is I was a union brat. I grew up in the unions. My mom finally got a job after working for French's Big Boy at a restaurant. She finally got a job with Western Electric, and watching them grow up with these jobs, these regular jobs. One worked one shift and one worked the other. We went to public school. And I talked to Eddie Melton up in when we were talking about Gary. We grew up in a community that looked just like the same street the Jackson Fives grew up on. It's like 2300 Jackson Street was the exact same house that I grew up on. It looks like the block was exactly the same. But so a typical, I guess we thought we were middle class, but we really weren't. We were sort of lower working class, right? But they were able to actually build a home by the time that I was finishing high school. They actually traveled a little bit. We went to the World's Fair. We got to see some things when we were growing up. My parents made sure we were exposed to a lot of different things. Public school, I played violin and viola and those sort of things, which exposed me to classical music and different types of music. And so that was cool. I had a myriad of jobs, a lot of different jobs, from being selling shoes. Remember Baker Shoes? I don't know if you remember Baker Shoes.
Yeah.
I worked at Baker Shoes. I worked at Learners
Oh my
as an
goodness. That's
assistant
so funny.
manager at
No, I
Learners.
worked the learners too.
Did
That's
you work at Learners? Yes,
that's funny.
I worked at
Yeah.
Learners. I got a job as a bank teller. And that's when I really got tired of counting everybody's money again and having these little bitty checks. I did work at the plant, at the General Motors plant for a minute, every summer. Was one of my perks. One of the perks after my dad kind of went through got some promotions. One of his perks was allow his kids to work during the summer. So I got that experience that I never want to experience again. It was really hard work. A lot of metal in my fingers and oil in my fingers that I never got out. It took 5 years, seems like, to get that oil out of your hands. I did that. And then finally, an interesting turn of events was when I was a flight attendant. I think I saw Representative John Barkley walk by. Yeah, I saw him tipping by. But when I was able to get a job working as a flight attendant, I flew internationally. And that was an eye opener because I was able to see how other nations were doing childcare and how they were doing healthcare and how they were doing education. And I was impressed. And I thought we had the better systems here, but we don't. Other nations have better medical systems. They have better school systems. They take care of families better. And that was an eye opener for me. Also, it just exposed me to a lot of different cultures. And that was a good thing. That was a very good thing. And then I was transferred to Michigan with the flight attendant job. And I decided to just apply to school there. And I wound up finishing my undergrad. And by the time I was asked to be I begged them to be in the honor system, honor program. But with that, I was able to get into a lot of research and get with a lot of professors that were doing some phenomenal work. And so that was really great. And then by the time I got ready to go to graduate school, I was so plugged into so many different clubs and so many different research projects that they asked me to come to graduate school there. So it was no problem getting into graduate school, and I got in and completed my PhD at the University of Michigan as well. And then as soon as I graduated with my PhD, my parents.
Sorry, IU and Purdue.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry for you about that. But but and Indiana colors and University of Michigan colors are the same. So, that worked out for me as well. But
so out of all the jobs before that, what was your favorite job?
All the jobs before the flight attendant job.
No. Before you started going to school, I mean, what was your favorite?
Probably the flight attendant job because it exposed me to the most. It was an eye opener. It was an eye opener. We had fun. We had fun. It was a lot of work. You go in the morning, you look beautiful going to work in the morning, but by the time you come back from that last flight, you look like because you're really tired. You're really, really tired. People don't realize how hard of work, physical work being a flight attendant is. And it really is a physical job, physical labor job. But I enjoyed it tremendously. It opened a lot of doors. It opened my eyes to a lot of things. And then in my practice, as my psychology practice, I also practice internationally too. And that was also with one of the virtual companies. That was an eye opener too, because it was not unusual. At times, I actually had clients that were in Israel. At the same time, I had clients that were from Palestine. I also had clients that were in in war zones.
Mm. Mm.
And it was interesting, their conversations. The Ukraine, I had 2 clients in the Ukraine in the middle of the war, in the middle of a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself was eye-opening,
Mm-hmm.
as far as how people coped with really, really dangerous situations.
That would, that would, yeah, that would be
Yes.
eye-opening. And even when you talked about the committee you chose about foreign policy and all of that, that makes so much sense why that's why you said what you said. So,
Yes.
yes.
It's definitely something I'm used to, as far as having those conversations across the seas. And I look forward to it. My son also is, he kind of followed, not in the psychology path, but definitely in the international community. He worked for the State Department for a while, for about 11 years, and he speaks several languages. I only speak one. I learned how to say beer in a lot of different languages when I was a flight attendant.
Well, thank you for letting us know a little, but one more question, letting us know a little bit more personal information. Pets. Do you have pets?
Absolutely.
And what type of pets do you have?
Absolutely. You know, I don't know what to do without a dog or a cat. I've got to have one or the other or both. But right now I have a beautiful German Shepherd. He's humongous. His name is Apollo. He's just amazing. And then at the dog park, someone gave me a little husky puppy. And so she's about 1 year old now. So now I have pet hair problems all the time. Because the
Okay.
German Shepherd, yeah, between the German Shepherd and the Husky, I'm pretty busy sweeping up dog hair all the time. So,
And see, this is the part, you're human. Like that's what people want to hear. They want to hear that, human side of you. And what people don't know that I'm gonna share is that probably half of her campaign volunteers came from her meeting them at the dog park. Like
they did.
everybody I talked to, I asked them, how did you meet Dr. McCray? How did you meet dog park? Dog park. So I'm like, okay, so she spends a lot of time in the dog park. But
Yes,
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 yes. So that's
yes,
one interesting fact about your campaign volunteers. We did
yes.
have
My dogs are totally spoiled. Yes.
we did have a couple of more questions I'm going to try to get to before we wrap up. So let's pretend a Republican has a good idea that you agree with, but your other Democratic senators do not hypothetically. How would you handle this?
Well, I think that we go with the better idea and we just work on convincing other people. I don't like partisan politics. I don't believe in team. You want to be a part of a team, but when it comes to good ideas, a good idea is a good idea, and you champion that good idea. Um, and there are some Republicans that can't wait to get the environment fixed. There are Republicans that are for women's rights. There are Republicans that are for affordable housing. Um, they just have leadership right now that has pulled them away from some of that conversation. But there's some that we could talk across the aisle with very readily. And they can't wait to do it either. They can't wait to have a normal conversation. So I can't wait to help be part of those joint conversations.
Mhm.
Um, I think all America is ready for that now. We're tired of the partisan
Mhm.
bickering in politics. It's about getting stuff done.
Exactly. And I know that that's who you are, getting things done. It's not about who's right or wrong. What is you talk a lot about common sense, just using the common sense. And we heard Vice President talk
Yes.
a little bit about that as well. Okay. I have one other question. Do you know if Jim Banks supports unions?
I don't know if he does. I don't think he does. He's voted, the 2025 stuff is definitely anti-union. We are supported, we're endorsed by AFL-CIO, the labor unions. We're supported by the UAW, by the Steelworkers Union, by the teachers unions. We're supported by the unions. We're endorsed by the unions because we champion unions. We know for a fact that they bought us a 40-hour week.
Mm-hmm.
The weekends, the overtime. They bought us things that made life bearable. for workers, and we need to support them in those efforts to get back to
Mhm.
something that's reasonable.
And with you, you said earlier that you were a union brat growing up. So did you ever think you would be the only Senate candidate that is supported right now by unions? Could you ever imagine that's where your future is going?
Yes. Well, you know what? I didn't hesitate to walk the picket line when they were picketing earlier, or they were um, trying to get some legislation through. And then Biden joined us on the picket lines as well, so that was good. But yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up with my parents going out on strike, multiple times while I was growing up, and we just did it, and that's what it cost, and we could see the benefits, when they won, or they got the raises they needed, or the safety equipment they needed. I could see the benefits of that. So of course we're supporting unions.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, we're at the 3 minute mark. We have 3 minutes left. So before I kind of do a final wrap up, tell people that are on here one more time, why should they vote for you why should they choose you on their ballot to be the next U.S. Senate?
I think they should choose me because I am them. Everything
Mm.
that they are encountering on a day-to-day basis, I encounter this. From having a business, from being a single mom, to trying to raise kids, to trying to make ends meet. I understand those things from the very core. I buy groceries. I have to shop and make my ends meet. You want someone there that not understands things from the PhD level, but also understands things from the Aldi's quarter. Got to get your quarter to get your
Your
to
grocery
get that
cart.
card to get your groceries. Standpoint.
Yeah.
To have someone who really understands what it takes to make ends meet, and how painful it is when you don't make ends meet, and how cards can be stacked against you. So I want. That's the reason why, and they should vote for me because we're relentless, and we're a fierce force. So you're not just voting for me, you're voting for my team. And my team is absolutely relentless, and they care about the environment. They care about schools. They care about women's rights. And we're ready for the fight. And we're going to kick that door open. And then hopefully everyone else will rush in behind it and make sure that we get this stuff done. And we make sure we fix these issues once and for all.
Yes. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us. As we mentioned early on, that we will be here every Monday at 6 p.m., just an hour, just for you to get to know this woman who is building a better future for all, breaking barriers. But we also, if you want to get involved with her campaign, you can do so. We still need help. We still got 57 days before Election Day. And so we want everybody that can help us. One thing you can do is share the link to get on Mondays with McCray so everyone could get to know her, but also her website, ValerieMcCray.org/volunteer. You can get involved, and whatever your talent, whatever your gift, we need you. Trust me. And Valerie will welcome you with open arms. Also, financial support. We need those donations. We need the donations to help right now. One of the reasons why we think that the polls are showing her behind is because of what the money that she's raised. But we know that money doesn't win elections, that people do and votes do, but we still need the money. So
Yes, we
we
need the
need
visibility, and
we
that's
need
what the
the
money
visibility, the
buys.
messaging, all of that. But so yes, please go to her website, donate, sign up to volunteer, and also share the links for Mondays with McCray. One last thing, you wear a lot of blue. Is blue your favorite color?
It has turned out to be my favorite color, but actually turquoise blue. I'm always wearing turquoise, but this blue, people, I mean, everything I have is blue, so people are not confused. But
Not
it is
confused at all.
exactly. So I'm in blue a lot. Our colors are blue, and I've grown to just absolutely love blue. But it's normally turquoise, so I try to do like a little combination of
Of blue and
turquoise and then
turquoise.
the royal blue, and it works.
It
I
looks
love it.
good. And I say
Thank
keep
you.
wearing the blue. because
Thank
this is
you.
encouragement for us to turn this Senate seat blue. We've got to
Absolutely.
turn the Senate seat blue, and we need everybody on this call helping us to do that. So it is 7:01. I don't want to take up any more of anyone's time. We want to be punctual. And I know Dr. McCray has another engagement, but we thank you so much
Yes, see you
for
guys next
this
week,
time.
and
So we'll see you all next week. Everybody
bye.
have a great week.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
David. Okay,
Bye. Thanks,
bye-bye.
Janine. All right, bye-bye.